moms, mothers. This program, Sojourners Along the Way, is dedicated to all the mothers that are out there, past, present, and future moms and mothers. Past, those who have already passed away. Present, those who are mothers now. Future, obviously, in the futures they will become mothers. And it doesn't have to be just a Happy Mother's Day program, but it is dedicated to all moms out there, because moms never stop. They never stop working. And I want to especially dedicate this program to my own personal mother, Isabel Ercolino, and also to my nieces who are moms. No biases here, but I believe my mom was a saint, and I believe my nieces are great moms. So, I have a special guest with me today, one you have never met before, and I hope you will enjoy seeing my special guest during this program. My special guest's name is, take a guess, Pinky. Pinky was really excited about coming and being on the program today to help keep on saying, I love my mommy, because we really all need to learn how to love our mothers. And we want to honor our mothers everywhere, okay? That's the goal for Sojourners Along the Way. There are a few clips that might be difficult for some people depending upon what has occurred during your life, but please keep in mind that Sojourners Along the Way always wants to encourage people and to offer help, healing, and peace. So this program is a smorgasbord. You're going to travel from here in the studio, Athens County, over to Beijing. You're going to hop over to Saigon in the past, and so we're saying a very big thank you, and we do want to honor our mothers who have gone on. I want to give you a special invitation that you can write something about a mother in your life, your own mother personally. Even if she has passed on, you can honor her by writing about her. Maybe a story from your life. Maybe a mother that's in your life, like a sister who is a mother, or a niece, your grandmother, whoever is a mom that is in your life. And then, if you want, I also will give an invitation. You can come into the studio and you can record it yourself. We can make arrangements for that by you contacting Sojourners Along the Way. The address is always given at the end of the program, especially an email address. But I would like you to tell a story, and we'll use that for 2018 and thereafter, because once it's on the internet, you have access to it 24/7, and I'm going to say, not really forever, but for a long time. So please, if you send in a DVD you think is ready to go and you want it returned to you, you must supply a self-addressed return envelope with the stamp on it. So I thank you very much. I hope you will take advantage of this special invitation. And as a precaution, please remember that Sojourners Along the Way is saying we're not responsible for any lost or damaged items. Of course, we will treat them with extreme care, but accidents do happen. So I would love to hear from you and have your story be told. Enjoy this edition of Sojourners Along the Way. Happy Mother's Day. I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life. Abraham Lincoln said that about his mom. This is a poem that I wrote about my mom, and I wanted to give you a few pieces of information. One line says, stitches, car accidents equals not quaint. And growing up, I had stitches several times. I had several car accidents, and unfortunately, the cause of my mother's death was a car accident. And then, towards the end of the poem, the line says, I await seeing this tremendous bomb. The actual term phrase is balm of Gilead, but that would not have rhymed, so I left it as balm. But I wanted you to understand that the balm of Gilead actually does exist, and it was used in the Old Testament. Very descriptive of bringing peace and healing. My mother. I called my mother Mom. She could stay ever so calm. It's a surprise that she didn't faint. Stitches, car accidents, not quaint. I told people she was a true saint. Oh, how I missed talking with her. She was like very precious myrrh. Mom liked to cook such delicious food and took care of a very demanding brood. If only we could reclaim the days that passed by in such a daze. Times of ingratitude, no words of praise. Mom, I am so indebted to you, always. I've thought of all you did, your unconditional love. I, in return, was an ungrateful kid, yet I knew you were from above. You always remained faithful, and were ever so graceful, an example of a great angel. You were amazing and stable. Lord, please thank my mom. I thank you for loaning her to me. I await seeing this tremendous bomb. Take good care of Mom is my plea. Mother's Day in Heaven. If roses grow in heaven, Lord, please pick a bunch of them for me. Place them in my mother's arms and tell her they're from me. Tell her I love her and miss her, and when she turns to smile, place a kiss upon her cheek and hold her for a while, because remembering her is easy. I do it every day. But there's an ache within my heart that will never go away. A letter from heaven. When tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not here to see, if the sun should rise and find your eyes filled with tears for me, I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today, while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me, as much as I love you, and each time you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. When tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart, for every time you think of me, I'm right there in your heart. Mom, my mind still talks to you, my heart still yearns for you. My soul knows you are at peace. Dear Lord, can you do me a favor? Would you hug my mom and place a kiss upon her cheek and tell her it's from me? Thank you, Lord. There are angels God puts on this earth who care for us and guide us. You can feel their love and gentleness as they walk through life besides us. They do great things for us every day. They whisper in our ears. They even hold us in their hearts when we are filled with all our fears. They are always there to give a hug and try to make us smile. They treat us with respect and love. They treat us like their child. God blessed me with an angel. I'm proud to call her my own. She's been with me throughout my life, been with me as I've grown. She's guided me the best she can. She's taught me like no other, and I'm thankful I'm the lucky one who gets to call her mother. Walk with me, Mama. Walk alongside of me, Mama, and hold my little hand. I have so many things to learn that I don't yet understand. Teach me things to keep me safe from the dangers every day. Show me how to do my best at home, at school, at play. Every child needs a gentle hand to guide them as they grow. So walk alongside me, Mama. We have a long way to go. This next story that I'm going to read has some editing that I did, and I am going to interject a true story that I am aware of. It's titled Unplanned Pregnancies. From the moment a woman learns she is pregnant, she immediately takes on the challenge of being a parent. Within the first month of feeling a young child developing in her belly, her womb. Why do we say her belly? Why not just tell it like it is? Her womb. She begins the process of preparing herself for her newborn. This, however, is not the case for every woman or girl who is on the path of becoming a mother. There are those who have to deal with several complications along the way. Sadly, there are many women today who are pregnant and do not want to be. At present, unplanned pregnancy is a widely recognized problem around the globe. There is an aggressive attitude of the younger generation and a supposedly adventurous consideration that society has with regards to sexual activity. The result is unplanned pregnancies continue to rise every year. However, there are women who are stuck in being a mother due to unprecedented events that happened in their lives. This became a reason for them to despise their being and the infant growing inside of them. As a result of this, some decide to abort the child. No matter what the reason, there is a truth that binds these females who undergo an abortion. They are unaware of the effects the abortion may have upon them even years after an abortion. No matter where the child came from, an expected or unexpected pregnancy, a wanted or unwanted child, the right time or not, a child is a child. A life is growing inside a pregnant female. Making a second or third mistake atop of the others is one of the most common blunders pregnant women make when they decide to abort an unborn child. They wish to undo the wrong they may have incurred in the past. However, that does not occur. And this is where I want to interject a true story. I have a cousin who had a friend. My cousin was married, her friend was not. My cousin became pregnant, and so did her unwed friend. My cousin had the child, her friend had an abortion. They remained friends. My cousin became pregnant a second time, and so did her friend. And again, my cousin had the baby. My cousin, by the way, was married. And her friend, again, still unwed, aborted the child. The third time, and again, it was almost like they were simultaneously getting pregnant. My cousin and her husband had a third child. My cousin's friend aborted a third child. And when she would get together with my cousin and see my cousin's 3 babies, young child, she couldn't handle it after a while because she realized that she also would have had a child the exact same age as my cousins. And it broke her up. She couldn't handle it emotionally, and their friendship dissolved, which is sad. Having an abortion is very, very difficult, and they don't tell you that you may have a scar that will not go away, that there are needs that result from that decision. Continuing on with the story. What of those who decide to give birth to their child? Motherhood is a journey. It is a process of knowing and understand how to cope with the need to guide a young individual, being the protection an infant needs, and being a mentor and a teacher a young child requires as she or he grows. A mother tends to both the emotional and physical needs of a child. The role a mother takes in the early years of a child's life influences the child throughout the young one's being as she or he grows to maturity. In the process of taking care of a child, there will be victories and failures. There will be times of joy and frustrations. All these situations and experiences teach a woman who she really is. Being a mother is a gift not only of being able to affect another individual, but of being able to see oneself differently. There might be some setbacks during the process of realizing one's role as a mother, but that is the wonder of the challenge. Being able to pass through all these setbacks hopefully gets a mother right on track and ready to provide what her child requires. The fruit of a mother's desire to provide the best for her child and the effort she makes to assure her child grows in the right path, protected from the woes of this world, comes with a great reward. The happiness that successful motherhood gives brings a sweetness to a woman's life, a being no one could ever change. Again, I want to encourage you, if you're pregnant and you're considering an abortion, please rethink it. There are so many people that do want to adopt. In fact, there are some where, becoming a surrogate mother is now occurring because there are many couples that are unable to have children. One of the stories in this program is about a barren woman who did, several years later, become pregnant, and she and her husband had a wonderful, wonderful little girl. But there are couples that cannot have children, and they would love to have children. They're very willing to adopt. So if you're in the situation of quote-unquote an unwanted pregnancy, please reconsider. Please. For yourself, too. Because you see, they don't tell you the negative aspects of what happens to a woman who has an abortion. I have a very tender place in my heart for orphans, and especially for those who have so graciously adopted children, giving them a home. There are many orphanages. In fact, when I was working in Beijing, somebody who attended the same church that I did I don't think they actually used the word orphanage, but they took care of countless children. And the majority of them in Beijing were females because they have a one-child policy, and therefore many times if the first child was a girl, she would be left, sometimes just on the side of the road, and then somebody fortunately would find them and bring them someplace where they could be given a good place to live. So I am in favor of supporting orphanages, and for those of you that are in a situation that you can afford to adopt a child, please consider that. Now, I don't know everybody that's watching this program, but it's something to take into consideration as a possibility. I'm going to read you 2 stories that are true stories, and I'm going to ask forgiveness in advance because I'm not so sure about how to pronounce all of the words because they're not all English, so forgive me if I kind of slough over a few things. This is talking about an orphanage that was in Saigon. Helping and loving orphans. It is one of the most beautiful compensations of this life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. That was said by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I tell you, I've come across a lot of his expressions, and he had a lot of good things that we should instill in our lives today. In the sweltering heat of Saigon, I walked into the orphanage. I think it might be pronounced Lac Orphanage, filled with 400 babies and toddlers, and knew my life as a swinging single in New York City was over as I searched for my true destiny. My eyes took in the rusty cribs with chipped enamel and no sheets. Hammocks made of rags were strung between cribs, 2 and 3 babies to each crib, their bodies covered with sores, their bony fingers reaching out to me. I could not erase them from my mind and heart, and so began the lifetime of babies. Many people have others in their lives who have inspired them to do things they ordinarily would not do. Dr. Tom Dooley was that inspiration for me. A naval doctor, he set up jungle medical clinics throughout Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, and established Lac Orphanage in Saigon. Dr. Dooley wrote books and raised money to support his medical camps and orphanage. I first met Dr. Dooley while I was working for Senator Jacob Javits in New York. Encouraged by his books and philosophy of helping others, I visited him in his hospital room while he battled cancer. I offered my services and volunteered my secretarial skills in helping to open and answer his mail. When Dr. Dooley passed away from cancer one day after his 34th birthday, I took over supporting Lac Orphanage. That's spelled ANLAC Orphanage. I visited the orphanage at least once a year, and I helped Madam, and forgive me, it's spelled Ngai, Nag. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. A brave Vietnamese lady who traveled south from North Vietnam during the Vietnam War. She collected the abandoned and neglected children and cared for them with the help of Dr. Dooley. It was at this orphanage that I met Dr. Patrick D. Tisdale, a colonel in the United States Army. Dr. Patrick was widowed and had 5 boys ranging from 5 to 12 years old. At age 49, I married him, and I had quite a family. I guess you could say I was orphaned as a child. My father died when I was young, and my mother had tuberculosis and was placed in a sanitarium. My 3 sisters and I were spread out among different family members, and I lived with my aunt. Maybe that's why, even with an instant family of 5 children, I felt compelled to adopt a girl. One night, I stood in the orphanage nursery, feeding a baby. Then, as if a searchlight stopped over one crib, I spotted a little 2-month-old baby girl. She looked up at me with laughing eyes, with lashes like black satin fans and round cheeks, and hair so black it looked almost blue. I scanned the room and realized this was the only baby awake. Walking quietly to the side of the crib, I scooped her up while she looked directly into my eyes, and I knew at that very moment this was my daughter. My mind raced at all the things I needed to do to bring Maya, the name that she had been given, home. As I held her and cooed, Madame brought me another child wearing a ragged dress. "You take Leon, too," she said. "She will be good at helping you." I had discovered that she seldom, very seldom asked, but rather insisted. However, in this case, she was right. I would take both of them home. There was no way I could turn my back on this severely malnourished 4-year-old girl with sores and disease covering her body and hair ridden with lice. Her head was flat from being left in her crib on her back too long as a baby. Where May had shiny onyx eyes, Leon's were dull and emotionless. As I cleaned her up, I could see what a beautiful child she was. That was only the beginning. After bringing the 2 girls home and seeing how the boys took all this in stride, babysitting, changing diapers, playing with their new sisters, I knew I needed to help more children. In a subsequent visit, I sat on the floor feeding a 3-month-old who was so tiny she looked 3 weeks old. Her entire length extended from the crook of my arm to the tips of my fingers. I knew she would die if she stayed at the orphanage. At that time, Madame and I put our little babies who passed away in shoe boxes to be buried at the local hospital. I could not see my little one in a shoebox, so I took her to a friend of mine at the British Embassy and left her there until I could complete the paperwork. 3 months later, Thruvan became the 3rd baby girl in our ever-growing family. The following year, when we delivered van loads of supplies to the orphanage, we adopted 2 more girls. One, a healthy, beautiful 7-year-old girl, and Kim Lan, a very sick baby. Like Thruvan, I knew she would also die in the orphanage if I left her there. I made arrangements for the 2 of them to fly out with Pat and me. While in the Philippines, Kim Lan's stomach began to balloon, and Pat rushed her to the Army hospital, where she died, connected to multiple tubes in an incubator. Devastated, yet never discouraged about saving more children, I immediately called Madame and asked her to find me another child. 3 months later, I brought home another baby whom we also named Kin Lan. She was so incredibly malnourished that people cried when they saw her. She looked like a skeleton covered with a thin layer of skin. Like Throuvan, she looked only a few weeks old instead of 3 months old, yet she flourished into a healthy child. I did not adopt any more children after Kim Lan, whether it was because there were no more rooms in our house or because I finally had an even 10 children. I realized my family was complete. But my work with the orphanage continued as I made what would be 27 trips in 1975 when Saigon was falling. I left my children and headed for Vietnam, determined to rescue the children at the orphanage. I had no idea how, but that had never stopped me before. Because I was not an adoption agency, I did not have access to the military planes provided for Operation Baby Lift. I called Pan American Airlines, but the fee was cost prohibitive. And where would the babies go when I got them to the States? Because Fort Benning was in my home state of Georgia, I called the general there. He did not return my call. So I called the Secretary of the Army. He did not return my calls, so I called his mother. I told her I was leaving for Vietnam in the morning and begged her to help me. When I got to the orphanage, I promised Madam N that I would save our children. I went to the office of the ambassador and begged for their lives. He said that if I gave him a list of names, and if each baby had a birth certificate and a legal name, he would get me an Air Force plane. I said, no problem, and raced to the local hospital to get some blank birth certificates. Some orphans were denied legal birth certificates and didn't even have legal names. We made up both. Frantically, 2 days later, we loaded 219 children onto 2 planes and headed for the Philippines for a layover. It was only there that I heard from the general's mother that a school in Fort Benning had been converted to care for the children in the United States. I contacted Tressler Lutheran Adoption Agency. They eagerly provided stacks of applications of waiting adoptive parents, and within 30 days, every one of the children was in a new home. For more than 50 years, I have tried to make a better life for my babies in Vietnam, Mexico, Colombia, and now Afghanistan through my organization, HALO, H-A-L-O, Helping and Loving Orphans. Far from a swinging single in New York City, I have found my destiny. And that's by Betty Tishdale. This next one is a story about someone who was adopted. My pen flies as my poetry and deepest thoughts flow onto the pages of my journal. It was late at night in my hotel room in Con Tum, Vietnam. This was my first trip back to Vietnam since I was left on the doorstep of Lac Orphanage, happy place, and later adopted as the war in Vietnam raged on in 1971. Raised in Georgia and later in Washington State, I've always considered myself an American and nothing else. I have a loving husband, supportive family, and 2 beautiful daughters. My life was complete, or so I thought. My trip to Vietnam was supposed to be a vacation, humanitarian trip with my adopted mother, Betty Tishdale. I was there to distribute the donations collected by Ocean Way Elementary School, where I taught 5th grade. Like so many who visit this beautiful yet very poor country, Mom and I toured the main cities, such as Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi. Then we traveled to Con Tum and visited 3 orphanages and A leper village. Yes, that's right. A leper village. I had never wanted to look back into my past, preferring to be grateful for who I was and what I had, never wanting to learn what I could have become if I stayed in Vietnam. As I picked up a baby at the orphanage, she put her small head on my shoulder. Like a dam breaking under the pressures of a river, my tears welled up and fell uncontrollably. God, how I wanted to take this 5-month-old baby home and sweep her away from the bleak life I was sure she would face. Looking around the orphanage, the floors are swept spotless. Lined along the walls are celery green, paint-chipped metal cribs. On top of a piece of plywood on the bottom of each crib is a half-inch mattress and thin blanket rolled up at the foot of each crib. At that moment, it was very clear to me why my mother evacuated those babies and my sisters all those years ago. As I cried and watched the toddlers run around wearing cloth diapers pinned around their malnourished waist, I wonder if my mother felt this strongly when she first held me at the orphanage, where there were literally hundreds of babies just like me. During the war, there were so many babies, often 2 to 3 in a crib. How did she pick me out of the hundreds of war orphans? Going back to Vietnam and seeing the disparity and devastation in the provinces outside the ever-growing tourist cities provided me closure to a part of my life that lay dormant and opened a door to a chapter in my life I did not know existed, but now embrace. I could not walk away from Vietnam without looking back. I came home once again to be a teacher, but with many new lessons to teach. I will never live another day without trying to teach the values of compassion, caring, and volunteerism. I now understood who I am and what I have become is because of my past. I could have been that little girl I held in my arms. Trevon Tisdale de Bellis. We live in a country that some people will say, we're poor, we don't have anything. I would contradict that, or I would challenge that. We live in a country that has so much, and people don't even know what they have. I've lived outside the United States. I've worked outside the United States. I've had the opportunity to see poverty. And here in Athens County, we do a number of people that are not the wealthiest. But in Athens County, we also have millionaires. And my question to people is, what are you doing with what you have? If you're just amassing things, I have friends who are now at the stage of life that they've said, we worked 40 years to gather all this stuff, and that's all it is, it's stuff. And now we're trying to get rid of it. And that's exactly what they're doing. What can you amass? In fact, I'm going to give you a Bible verse because it says, store up your treasures in heaven where moth, rust, and a thief cannot get them, cannot destroy them, cannot steal them. If you use wood, hay, and stubble, it's all going to burn. But if you build with gold, silver, and precious gems, that's what will last for all eternity. And I look at that as not what do we build physically, materialistically. What are we building in somebody else's life? Helping them to have what you take for granted. There are many orphanages in the United States and especially in other countries. There are children, human beings, that need, not want. They need more than what they have access to. What can you do? Can you adopt a child? Can you help to support a child? Can you send donations? There's lots of ways to help. Find one and do something that will help somebody else. In fact, I've spoken this in another program, but I'm going to say it again. When you help somebody else, you get blessed in the process. It makes you feel good. So if you want to feel good, do something for somebody else. In adoption, a child is not given up. A birth mother gives life. A child, a family, unconditional love. She gives a part of her heart that will never feel whole. She gives another mother a part of her heart that was always missing. An adoptive mother gives a life and family to this child. She gives unconditional love. She gives a part of her heart to another mother. You give a lot. Just never give up. So let me encourage you, if you are in a situation with a quote-unquote unwanted pregnancy, there are many people out there that would love to have a child, and you can place that child in their arms. To my other mother, you are the other mother I received the day I wed your son. And I want to thank you, Mom, for the loving things you've done. You've given me a gracious man with whom I share my life. You are his lovely mother, and I, his blessed wife. You used to pat his little head, and now I hold his hand. You raised in love a little boy, and then gave me the man. I'm going to add a P.S. to this. I like to tell my friends who have sons to remember, you are potentially raising somebody's future husband. And if you really want your daughter-in-law to love you and for their marriage to be blessed, teach your son how to do all the things: cooking, cleaning, washing dishes, making the bed, doing laundry, doing all of the quote-unquote inside stuff. And I want to put in a plug for my own mother, because she was way ahead of her time. I had two older brothers that are excellent cooks. They know how to do all of the stuff of taking care of a house. And I say, Mom, you done did good. So I pass that on to you. You know, maybe you're not raising a son or a daughter. Maybe you already did. Well, look to the next generation and tell your child, remember, you are potentially raising somebody's husband, and I want them to really love you. So please, teach your son how to do all of the things, especially the cooking, and let them be good cooks. My brothers are along the lines of being gourmet cooks. You can do it too. want to encourage you to do a fun activity with your children or grandchildren, nieces, nephews, siblings if they're younger than you, or even older. It doesn't make any difference. If your mother is still living, why don't you write a list of words that come to your mind that describe your mother? How many positive, good things, qualities, characteristics, what things has your mom tried to instill in you, or them, depending upon who is doing this activity? Make it a fun game. Make it into a card that you can give to the mother for Mother's Day. Or if you really want to surprise her, you don't have to do it just on Mother's Day. You can do it anytime. Okay? Let it be something fun. My mother was far from perfect. She didn't go to the best school, dress in fine clothes, or have a lot of money. But when I look back, she had riches that money can't buy. A big heart that knew only one thing, the love for her children. Your mom is your mom. Nobody can do half the things she does or has done for you. Nobody can compare to her. Only God can love you more than she does. She's only one person, but she's the person that matters the most. Share if you love and appreciate your mom, no matter where she is, in heaven or here on earth. There is nothing like a mother's love. My 3-year-old asked, "You know why God took so long to give you a baby?" Then she said, "I know why." The next 5 words that came out of her mouth totally wrecked me. How could a 3-year-old know this? This is Rebecca Fox's story. I was painting in the garage, and she was drawing a rainbow on the cement floor with chalk when she said, "I'm glad God gave you to me as my mommy." I wasn't ready for it. "What?" I asked, making sure I heard her right. She tried to say it again, but her words came out a little bit more awkward this time, and she said something like, "I'm happy you're my mommy from God." Tears filled my eyes. Then she prayed, "God, thank you for giving my mommy to me, and thank you," I couldn't understand this part, "and thank you she makes me breakfast, and thank you we're going to make pumpkin spaghetti, biscotti." That was the 3-year-old's way to say it. "I hope it tastes good. Do you think it will taste good, God?" Then she opened her eyes and went back to drawing her chalk mural, while my eyes blurred with tears and a huge lump came to my throat. Where did that come from? She's 3, and I didn't know her little heart could hold such gratitude, or that it would just burst out of her during this subtle moment in the garage, or that she would thank God out loud for me right then. Usually, she doesn't even want to pray out loud, even with me encouraging her. But today, she felt something inside of her, something beautiful. Her little heart can hold more love than I often know. Her little mind is not so little as I think it is. She thinks far beyond what I would expect. "Thank you, Selah," I said, smiling. "I'm so glad God gave me you as my daughter." I would have hugged her right then if my hands didn't have white paint on them, and if there wasn't so much junk between us on the floor. The drawers I was painting, and an old wooden chair. "Did you have to wait a long time for me, Mom?" she asked. I have told her the story many times, but she wanted to hear it again. I stepped across the junk on the floor and came a little closer to her. "Yes," I said, "I asked God for a baby over and over again, but God didn't give me one for a long time. And when me and Daddy found out you were in my tummy, we were so happy," I told her. "Do you know why God took so long to give you a baby?" she said. "No, honey," I said, "I don't know." "I know why," she said. "Why?" I asked. "Because God was making me," she said. God was making me. I looked into her deep eyes that seemed to know something from another world, and her tousled hair rustled in the breeze, and in that moment she seemed 1,000 years old. God was making me. And that answer was enough, and my heart resounded with the truth of it. Of course God was. Of course, that's exactly what God was doing, dear one. Because now that I know her and know how special she is, it only makes sense that it took so long. I don't know what God was doing with her up there. There is just something about her that seems as if she spent a long time on God's chest before coming to mind, almost as if heaven didn't want to give her up. Selah. And I say this with tears to you, barren ones, who are waiting for your baby prayers to be answered, who are praying every day for God to give you a baby, to give you life. I don't know why it's taking so long. I don't know if God will give you a child through your womb or through foster care or adoption. But either way, if you are waiting right now and you don't know why it's taking so long, maybe it's because God, the maker and giver of life and every living thing, is still in the process of making your baby. We can't even begin to comprehend what is happening in the heavenlies, in the unseen, and what or who God is forming. God's ways are not like ours. God's timing is not like ours. And perhaps if God's moving so slowly and God's taking so long, it's because God's forming something so breathtaking and beautiful it cannot be rushed. God is in the process of forming a masterpiece, and maybe one day a little masterpiece will stand before you and say, "I know why God took so long to give you a baby." And you will say, "Why?" And they will say, "Because God was making me." This is from barrentobeautiful.com. I highly want to encourage you to go check that out on the internet. Rebecca Fox had struggled with infertility for several years before giving birth to her daughter in 2013. The word Shelah comes from the Bible. It's used in the the Old Testament, the book of Psalms. It means pause, peace. I don't know if that's the reason why they selected that name for their daughter, but Rebecca is very open and honest about her struggle with infertility and walks you through what her experiences were. So again, I highly encourage, check it out. Okay, she has the website, Facebook, or email. I was able to find her on the Facebook and also the website. Again, that is barrentobeautiful.com. So those of you that are waiting, I do pray that you will be very blessed. I think this one is so cute. Take a good look at it. It gives a really powerful message. It doesn't matter how old you are, You will always need your mom. And I like that little heart there because it's showing the love. And that's what we need to do. We need to be loving. Express your love for your mother. And if you need to, forgive her. Because you have to remember, she is human and she makes mistakes. We all make mistakes. If you're perfect, whew, wow, you're amazing then. But if you are, then you have to attribute what you got from your mother and also father. But we're focusing on mothers for this program. So please, be loving, be kind, be forgiving, grace, mercy, and compassion. Being a mother means that your heart is no longer yours. It wanders wherever your children do. And I want to put in a plug for Chicken Soup for the Soul and also for Guidepost, because both of those magazines or books put out excellent publications. I think they are. So this is a Patricia statement, that they have a lot of positive things, encouragement, and who doesn't need to be encouraged in today's world? So check it out. You can get a lot of stuff online for free, and yes, you can do the internet. Go to the library, as I've said numerous times in the past, and they'll help you. If you don't know how to do the internet, they will actually help you. They're very kind. My mother, my friend so dear, throughout my life you're always near. A tender smile to guide my way, you're the sunshine to light my day. Happy Mom's Day. I love you.